Hey, it's your buddy Peace and Harmony with you here today. Zooming in on the covert narcissist and how they obtain their supply. This is in response to a viewer who had asked a question a little bit as a request to dive in a little bit more in depth in terms of how the covert narcissist obtains their supply. Exactly what are the tactics, how can they really review it, how can they better understand that so that they can stop it in its tracks and no longer be a victim to that. So I'm happy to address that in this video. The covert narcissist is ostensibly somebody who has a heightened sense of self-importance, feels essentially superior to others, feels better than others. A lot of people call it, an egomaniac or the Machiavellian syndrome. Essentially, there's somebody who feels better than others, and coupled with a lack of empathy, it gives them essentially a behavioral component, a thought component, and a personality component, which comprises a personality disorder. So yeah, sometimes we feel that we've accomplished certain things, we have an internal sense of pride. That is not what I'm referring to. I'm referring to actually a personality disorder, where someone ostensibly feels much more superior to others, has an inflated sense of self, inflated sense of self-importance, and has really grandiose thoughts, behaviors, moods, and mannerisms, which oftentimes are not based on reality. So they have a sort of grandiose thought about themselves, and oftentimes participate in grandiose thoughts and behaviors, and do impulsive things that are based from that condition or that situation or that mindset. So, coupled then with a lack of empathy, which means they are not able to understand and have a sort of, there's a bee over there, Lord have mercy. I don't want another bee sting. So, with a lack of empathy, meaning that they are not able to understand the feelings, needs, wishes, and interests of others. They're not able to perceive those. They're not able to relate to those. So those two main core components combined give them a heightened sense of superiority, within themselves. So the main difference within the covert narcissist is that they don't outwardly express this. They don't outwardly, maybe flaunt their behaviors. They don't outwardly, display their sense of superiority like perhaps the overt narcissist, where they will be very, extravagant in their body language. They might be extremely flashy and showy with their possessions, such as the overt narcissist. They very much, oftentimes then communicate their superiority sense of self. They very much, you can see them coming more or less. But what is really so hurtful and how they abuse is that this is how they feel underneath, and then how they actually are in terms of how they treat people is very different. So they have a mask of superiority that they foster within, but yet they treat people, and the way that they treat people is very counter to how they're feeling inside. So they don't oftentimes express themselves, so they tend to allow this to be cultivated within themselves, and it's by virtue of them not communicating that it has such an abusive effect. How can this be? Well, if you've interacted with a covert narcissist, you have this feeling that it's just kind of coming off of them, it's emanating from them. It's abuse by omission. It's not so much what they do, it's what they don't do. It's the comments that they don't make. It's the behaviors of respect that they don't engage in that is so hurtful. And it's really because they have so much really within that it gives them the ability to kind of split their mask that they're presenting and then their authentic self. And their authentic self tends to be the one that is making calculated move, sort of, you know, making internal judgments of others, and really then, you know, create a sort of direction for themselves that oftentimes, you know, on down the road with a covert narcissist, it might take months or even years or even decades when that actual mask begins to crack, and then you realize that this person, you know, hasn't been there for you, or you know, just in review of your life and feeling like something is missing, but you can't put your finger on it, and so you just kind of continue on in the relationship. You know, you feel like something is missing, there's a void, there's something vacant. And these things tend to kind of build up. And then you begin to really review and make them accountable and try to have a discussion about it. And you find that once you try to keep them accountable, they're not able to be held accountable. Let me get my glove here. I know people have said about the noise, so I'm trying to put my glove over this, so hopefully that helps. So, you know, this, in essence, when you feel these sort of feelings, which are somewhat difficult to articulate because it's more of a feeling, that these can very much be due to covert narcissist abuse, which essentially is an abuse by neglect, an abuse by omission, an abuse by what they withhold versus what they actively do. And then when you start to see a very large difference between the self that they present to you and the world, and then the authentic self, which is how they're truly feeling, behaving, and judging, you know, when you start to see that slip and crack, then you begin to see, you know, and this often occurs when they're older, you get a chance to see the real self, which is lurking within, and you're able essentially to put two and two together, and now you understand that they've been harboring these sorts of superiority feelings, and that they essentially haven't been interacting with you because they feel that they're above it. And that is really what's so hurtful, especially when it's someone intimate and, you know, close in your environment. It's very, it can be very upsetting to realize this and make changes in your life so that you can reduce the hurt. So I hope this little discussion helps. Please do help those in need, and please share and subscribe for more great tools, videos, discussion, and support.